I want to start out talking about this TikTok ban because I think it's an interesting, relevant discussion, not just about TikTok, but social media and screens and all that. And I would not be for banning TikTok just because it's something that's very addictive for kids. And it is, I think all of these social media, I think they're all bad for kids. To me, the reason that I'm at least considering, or I guess on the side of, should we ban TikTok is the fact that it is controlled, operated by a Chinese company. I think it's pretty fair to say that the United States and China, we're not always on the best terms. So if it was a United States owned company and it did the same things it was doing right now, I would not be on the side of banning TikTok. And I'm not even sure I'm really even on that side. But but if this company is able to uh, get our private information or sell it or compromise American citizens, especially prominent American citizens, which I wouldn't rule out. That's where I am on this. Now we can further the discussion and talk about just kids who are getting on at teenagers and just scrolling and ruining their lives and just wasting their lives away. But to me, the whole issue is China, which I think that's the issue because clearly you don't see United States senators, congresspeople trying to ban Facebook or trying to ban Instagram or trying to ban Twitter. Hell, Donald Trump is now in bed with essentially Elon Musk with Twitter. Even knowing that all those other social media, they have kind of the same issues TikTok has, but to me, it's all about the China piece.
Oh, absolutely. It's the combination of the power of social media, which we all have seen, and maybe we didn't. I would say we definitely didn't realize what social media could become when it started, and now we see the damaging effects, and that's why we're regulating it or pushing to regulate it more and more, almost like we do tobacco when it comes to kids or something like that. And there's all these laws that have been proposed about limiting screen time, especially with minors and having them opt in. And that stuff is separate from this because of the Chinese connection. The company's called ByteDance. And look, they have an American office and they say that they're not really controlled by the Chinese government, but every company in China that's owned by Chinese business people, entities, is essentially at the end of the day controlled by the government because the government of China can tell them to do whatever they want. So maybe at this moment, the Chinese government's not saying, hey, give us all the data you have on all your American users, but they could do that theoretically at any time. And based on what they've done in the past, we obviously shouldn't put that past them. That's why it passed overwhelmingly in the House and Senate. Republicans and Democrats both voting for it. Biden signed it into law, and it did. And by the way, we went to the Supreme Court on Friday. Any day now, by the time you hear this, the Supreme Court's probably going to make a decision on that law, whether it was constitutional or not. The people who support TikTok are saying, well, it's a free speech thing, and yet you can't allow this law to go forward because of free speech. But what the Supreme Court justices said in the argument, and what they ultimately, I think, will rule, is that this really isn't about free speech because Congress is not saying we're trying to censor any kind of speech on TikTok. What they're saying is you either have to sell the company or shut it down because of the Chinese ownership. They're not saying we're banning TikTok. They're giving you the out of sell it to an
Mhm.
American company. And so far, ByteDance has refused to even entertain publicly any kind of talk of a sale, which is interesting if you consider it because the company is worth a lot of money. It's a huge asset. The price for it, I imagine, would be very high. And so far, they haven't agreed to do that. But Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank, he has publicly come out with a group of investors saying he wants to buy it. He says they've made a bid for it. There was a report the other day that the Chinese government was considering selling it to Elon Musk, which would be interesting. Now, China has publicly said that isn't true. With the Chinese government and ByteDance, who knows what they might do. But the deadline is Sunday. It is supposed to either be sold to an American company, which seems almost impossible that that would happen in a few days, or be shut down on Sunday, meaning shut down, meaning you could no longer buy it or get it in the app stores on Google or on Android or iPhone. So we'll see what happens. I think probably what will happen is the Supreme Court will say the law is valid and that ByteDance will lose their appeal, and then Trump will be sworn in Monday, and he will try to work out some type of deal or sign some type of executive order to keep it up and running until it can be sold to some American investors. And that would be the best case scenario because, as you said, there's something, it feels kind of weird to ban things in America, free speech or platforms of speech, even if they are potentially dangerous. On the other hand, you can't have a foreign adversary that has that kind of control because of the power of social media. It's not just the data, that's one scary thing, but also the algorithm. Like we all know, TikTok has an incredibly addictive algorithm. And China does the TikTok in China is completely different than the TikTok that we see in the United States. All the crap we put on it, they don't allow that in China. It's about like education and playing the violin and stuff. But if they wanted to alter, like we know that is the way that our adversaries have interfered in our elections, going back to 2016. The bots stirring division in America along racial lines, socioeconomic lines, political lines. That is something that China and Russia are doing already. Now you have this platform essentially controlled by, if they want to, the Chinese government. Think about what they could do to alter and shape opinion in America with the power of that algorithm and then the data they have on top of it. Brett Kavanaugh brought this up at the Supreme Court hearing. Think about how they could get information on young people, blackmail them, and essentially try to recruit a new generation of spies in America. You don't have to recruit spies like you used to face to face. Now you can do it potentially by blackmailing people through a social media app like TikTok. Like these are real concerns, and I just can't imagine that it will ultimately survive with its current ownership. If it survives, I think it will have to be with US ownership, and I think that's the way that it should be. I don't want to see TikTok banned, but it can't go on like this. And also, we need to work out a solution because I do feel bad for the people who make their living on TikTok.
Right. I'm thinking about them as well now that I'm kind of a YouTuber. And speaking of YouTubers, I also
Right.
saw, I don't know if he was serious, but Mr. Beast. So you have Mr. Wonderful and Mr. Beast. I think Mr. Beast also said he was interested in buying TikTok. I'm not sure if he was 100% serious. He probably made a video about that and got a billion views off discussing that. But to me, so I was on TikTok like 2 years ago. I started an account. And I put a couple videos and I'm too busy. But then I started doing this NASCAR stuff even more where I'm starting to make those vertical videos no matter what. And so my thought was this, if I'm going to take sometimes it takes me 30, 45 minutes to make a really good vertical video. Okay. So I produce it myself. And I'm like, if I'm going to do that and it takes me 30 to 45 minutes, I'm going to put it on every single social media platform. So right now I put it on YouTube, I put it on X, I put it on Facebook, I put them on Instagram, and I put them on TikTok. Now, what's interesting to me about TikTok, and this is where you're talking about the algorithm, is TikTok. I've found you can go quote unquote viral off TikTok way quicker. Like you don't need a ton of followers. A lot of times with these other social media, like it's hard for a smaller channel or smaller platform. But we've posted videos that have gotten something like 40,000, 50,000 views on TikTok, and I only have 200 followers. So if you get in something that's
Wow.
trending, I can see how young people are like, oh, look, I made a video on TikTok. All of a sudden, oh, look, I'm nobody, but 60,000 people are watching my video. The other thing I saw, which made me kind of depressed, because we're talking about TikTok, but also social media in general. I saw this tweet the other day. I don't have the exact publication, but they said like the average American last year spent 2.5 months on their phone. Think about that. 2.5 months. So if you're spending roughly a third of your time sleeping, let's say roughly a third of your time working, but also let's be real, a lot of people that are working or working from home, they're also on their phone. And some people work with their phone. I work with my phone, but that was depressing. And you just think about screens, you think about how much time we're spending kind of bent over, just looking at our phone and how that's going to affect like our hands and our spine and all that. I mean, Eric, you you have a son. I got a couple kids. Like, there's been times where I haven't seen my kids. They're at school, right? I pick them up, I bring them back. I should be spending quality time, and like I'll be over there looking at my phone and 20 minutes will go by. And by the way, I'm not on TikTok. I'm more of an X person. But I'll think to myself, what am I doing? Like my kids have been at school. I haven't seen them. I just picked them up. So don't get me wrong. We've got a little bit of quality car time. But like I'm already looking on my phone when I should be spending time with them and playing with them. And that's the difference now compared to when we grew up. Like our parents were on the floor with us playing, which I am too, but like every once in a while I need to get slapped in the face. Like take this phone and just put it in a different room because they are freaking addictive.
Oh, it's incredible. Does your phone do that thing where it tells you each week how many minutes of screen time you averaged the prior week?
Yeah, the screen time notification. I used to I used to like really look at that and I would feel good about myself. So if like 1 week or whatever, it said you're on just whatever, 8, 9, 10 hours a day. I'd be like, okay. So the next day I'd try to beat that. I'd try to do less the next week. And I would really kind of monitor that. But now I don't know how it works because like I spend so much time on this stupid laptop and I don't know if it's connected to my phone, like it sees both of that. Like I spend way too much time on screens. But yes, that can also be very
Yeah.
depressing.
Look, I think it's interesting. If you would have told people 50 years ago or 40 years ago or maybe even 30 years ago, we are going to have an invention that will allow you to allow basically everybody in the world to have the entirety of human knowledge in their hand. And it will also be a camera and it will also be a communication device. And we will all have access to that instantly at any time. You would have thought we would be on the verge of a new age of productivity. It's certainly in America, in a wealthy country. But that really hasn't happened. If you look at productivity, it hasn't exploded like you would think it would. And the reason is because I think of what you're saying, along with all the positives of that, you get TikTok and you get the X algorithm and you get Instagram. And not that any of those things are per se bad, but they are time wasters and they steal your attention. And I think the evidence is pretty clear. They change your brain to some degree. I think it's happened with me, myself, and I didn't obviously grow up on this stuff because I'm older, but I have my attention span. I see it in myself is not what it used to be. Now I fight it by trying to limit my time on it, by really trying to like take a step back and refocus. But I've seen it. I have less patience for things. I I want it right now and just the part I want, and I don't want to deal with anything else. And I get distracted more easily, I think, than I used to. And like I said, for me, I'm older, so it's less of an effect on me. But I think with younger people, you see it to a large degree. And look, for some people, it's not that big of a deal. It's makes them less productive. Maybe it makes them a little bit less good as a parent or a spouse, which that's not a great thing. But the real problem, I think, is young people. And I think people who grew up on this, who know nothing else and are addicted to those algorithms and the negative consequences they can have, especially for young girls, and the body image problems and the self harm and the mental health issues. I think it's had a negative impact by and large on dating. I think dating apps are one of the reasons I think that we don't have as many kids and we don't have as many marriages, or even if you want to say just cohabitation. We have the birth rates have dropped with the drop in the rate of people coupling together, whether that be marriage or just living together. I think being online has something to do with that. People are spending less time interacting with each other. So it's changed our society in ways large and small that I think we don't even fully understand yet and will be grappling with for a long time to come. And look, for adults, can do whatever they want. And if the repercussions are bad, if it makes you less attentive as a parent or a spouse, or it makes you less likely to get in a relationship, there's really not much I think we can do about that other than make people aware of it. But for kids, I think we're going to head toward, and I mentioned this in the TikTok discussion. You're already starting to see this. We're going to start regulating social media, and I think we should, as a harm, because it is a harm by and large to kids. The studies have been pretty overwhelming on that. We're not going to ban it, just like we don't ban other things that are harmful. But I think for kids, we're going to more and more limit their access. And the social media companies are trying to get ahead of this by instituting their own things, their own accounts for kids that are restrictive, because they know what's coming. They know the restrictions that are likely to come eventually when Congress can get its act together if they survive challenges in the courts. We'll see. Utah, I think it was, passed a ban like this, and it's been challenged in court. We'll see if it'll hold up. But we really have to take a look at it, because you're right. It is changing all of us. And some of it is good, but man, the negative consequences are so bad. And like I said, it's just, I like, I like it, but I look at my own usage. I'm like, what am I doing? Why did I just waste 45 minutes doom scrolling on X? Like, what did that do for me?
That's another thing, the doom scrolling. It's changing the way we think, in the sense of, you see the most negative, right? Whatever's gonna be clicked on. Like, for some reason on the For You tab, I don't know if you see this too, but I see all those fights, right? Like, now in high school, middle school, whatever it is, junior high, all the kids they're filming these fights. And I just, maybe because I always watch them, I do watch them. Some of them I feel like are from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. They're the same fights shown over and over. But what is that doing now, where, okay, now some kids probably want to be on those videos. They want to win the fight. You got other kids bullying others and all that. And the other part is, you mentioned young girls, teen girls. Now, my daughter, she's about to turn 7 just here in a couple of days. So God knows I'm not looking forward to what happens down the road when she's a teenager. But even last night, I'm helping coach out her basketball team. And these are a bunch of 6 and 7-year-old girls. And when girls and kids get together, they have fun and all that. But I did notice, I was like, man, and maybe I'm a terrible coach. Really, maybe it comes down to me being a terrible coach. I was like, man, these girls really are not paying attention. And the other coach with me said the same thing. He's like, man, you got about 3 seconds of attention span. And so my daughter obviously isn't on social media, but I think it's not just the social media, it's the screens, it's the iPads, it's the tablets, it's the unbelievable. When I look at my TV over here, how freaking big these TVs are, and 4K, and how amazing the graphics are. And think about, you and I are both in our 40s. Okay, it was fun to watch TV back in the day, but you're sitting, you got like the TV with the wooden encasement that your grandma had, and you
Right.
got to go switch it. And we didn't have HD growing up. And I just think the colors and the sounds and the addictive nature of screens now,
Yep.
for example, so my son's 3.5, and he's a big reactor. My daughter wasn't like this. I also think we've probably given my son too much screen time, because if I don't let him watch Gigantosaurus or Wild Kratts, which by the way are pretty educational, we try to keep it
Yeah.
educational. If I turn the TV off, he will have a freaking just throw a shit fit, dude. And it's insane. I'm like, the fact
Yeah.
that you reacted that way, as if somebody in your family died from just me turning the TV off. And again, we're trying to find educational type programming. There's another show called Dino Dana. I don't know if you're familiar with Coco Melon though. Have you heard about Coco
Oh my
Melon?
God. It
Dude,
is like crack for children.
that's what I'm saying. And it's so obvious. The songs are addictive, and
Yep.
you feel like you're transfixed. So we stopped watching Coco Melon. We talked about this before. All these things, social media, screens, casinos, whatever it is, they are using the perfect sounds, the perfect colors,
Mhm.
the perfect whatever it is to addict you. And they're doing it on purpose. They're testing these colors.
Oh,
They're
absolutely.
testing the sounds. They're testing what the characters look like. They're testing their voices to addict us and our children. It is crazy. It is pretty scary. And I feel like I've noticed it, especially even the difference between my 7-year-old daughter and 3.5-year-old son. It's pretty stark.
Yeah, Coco Melon, like I said, it is like crack for children. It's like a dopamine hit to their brain. They did it intentionally. It's their algorithm essentially, and it worked. When we were younger, we had commercials. We had limited options. We
Yes.
couldn't carry it around. If you wanted to watch TV, you had to sit your ass in front of the television. You had to wait through commercials. We had more than 3 channels like our parents, but we didn't have 1,000 things on instantly where we could watch basically any entertainment we ever wanted that's been consumed or been made in the history of the world. And that's a massive change in a fairly short period of time. And as I said before, it's amazing how technology has developed, but yet we haven't gotten more productive. And in some ways, we've gotten less productive. And it's because we as humans have a weakness where we can't keep our attention. And these companies, whether it be Coco Melon or TikTok or the YouTube, they know how to get you to stay engaged with the algorithm. And so the technology that could make you more productive and give you more information is also at the same time working against you to find new ways to make you waste time. It's probably going to be that way with AI too. Like AI is here, and AI is a wonderful thing in a lot of ways. A huge time saver for people already who know how to use it. And it's not even what it's going to be yet. But it's also going to be a huge time waster. Like you can imagine, people are going to have these AI chat bots. Someday they'll be robots. I mean, Tesla's already making robots. And what are they going to do with these AI robots? They're going to end up like wasting time with them, probably having sex with them. I mean,
I
that's
was gonna
probably going
say
to be
yes.
the sex robot thing is going to be a huge deal. So you're going to have this incredible technology. It's like the show Black Mirror. That's probably what the future is going to be. It's going to be ironic, access to this incredible technology that can make our lives so much better and richer. And we're going to do things like, mess around with it, have sex with it, get it to do crazy things. Like people are going to have it do like all these crazy stunts and blow it up. And that's kind of, how we are as humans, I guess. Something about human nature in there.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I just started messing around with Grok, and I started making YouTube thumbnails off Grok, and they're pretty dang good, especially if it's with a prominent person. If you're talking about a prominent, famous person, they're going to give you 4 options of a picture that look pretty dang good, and it's just starting. How much better is it going to be months, years from now? And I'm thinking about that. I'm like, this has probably eliminated graphic designers. You're going to have people
Yeah.
who are photographers. Their job, for the most part, is going to be eliminated because, and I had a wife of a friend of mine said this. I was looking for headshots basically for YouTube thumbnails, and she texted me and said, I went and found this dude, and I gave this guy just a picture of me, and through AI, he sent me back whatever it was, 10, 15, 20 unbelievable headshots, which are all AI, but it looks exactly like her. I mean, they're using a picture of her. Think about a photographer with your family. You can probably send AI a picture of your family, and they're going to give you the Christmas picture, the Halloween picture, the Thanksgiving
Right.
picture, right? We'll probably all save a lot of money. But the other part was, and I think about this a lot because I try not to be on my phone. I kind of hate the fact, even though I like my job right now, I kind of hate the fact that it's all looking at a screen, whether it's YouTube, my laptop, my phone. The other day, I was at one of my kids' Taekwondo class. I don't remember which one, but I'm looking at my phone. I look over, and I swear, Eric, probably 90% of all parents were looking at their phones. And we do talk and get to know each other a little bit. But I'm thinking,
Right.
back in the day, your parents, and we do talk, like at my daughter's basketball games. Everybody's kind of standing up, so nobody's on their phones. Everybody's chatting. You're getting to know people. But in this particular setting, I'm thinking you could make great friends with another couple. You could be sitting next to a couple who's watching their kid. I'm watching my kid, and all of a sudden you strike up a conversation. You become great friends. You start going out to dinner, having drinks, and all that. How much of that is lost on the fact that people aren't
Yep.
even really conversing? They're just looking at their phone. It is funny too because you'll catch somebody and you'll kind of see what they're looking at. I'm not even trying, but it's not work related. It's just total crap. And then X, even
Right.
X has so much, whatever it is, porn or all kinds of stuff. Like,
Is it one of those
you'll
X
just
feeds
look,
that says you won't last 2 minutes on this feed?
right, all that, and I'll just look at X. That's the one thing about X too. I don't like the pornography there. If you want pornography, you should be able to go to a site that's for that. But the fact that it
Right.
can just pop up, and we've gotten to this discussion back in the day on radio, people will be like, no, that's you looking at, that's your algorithm. We tested this out. We tested this out.
Right.
The For You tab, it's going to show you that stuff. It's going to show you a bunch of that crap, right? And you're looking, oh my God, like there's somebody next to me, and all of a sudden that comes up, and you're like, just get out of it.
Well, and also for some reason certain times I see Elon Musk's tweets here or there, his X posts, but I don't like hover over them or interact with them. But yet sometimes at certain times I will see like the first 10 things in my For You tab, 9 of them will be
Yes.
Elon Musk posts. And I'm like, wait a minute, this algorithm is being manipulated. But we are losing something. And if you look at, we have an epidemic of loneliness in this country, particularly with men. And if you look at surveys of just asking questions like, how many close friends do you have? How happy and engaged do you feel? Like those numbers are way down from what they used to be, particularly for men. And it's because we are losing those institutions that bring us together. It's not all because of technology. Some of it's because of the loss of religion in our country. Church used to be that place for a lot of people, and we're much less religious. But things like bowling leagues have dramatically fallen off. And as you pointed out, even when we are brought together for basketball games or kids' sporting events, we're not engaging like we used to because we're all on our phones. If your same situation 30 years ago, someone in your position, they would have been there and they would have been talking to the other parents the whole time because there literally would have been nothing else to do except, obviously you're watching the event, but there are breaks, there are timeouts, you're in between sessions, whatever the case may be. You would be just talking to the people around you. You would be making friends. And that's not happening with older people. It's not happening with young people. It's one of the reasons, as I said, the marriage rates and cohabitation rates are going down. The birth rate is going down. And the kids growing up like that. Imagine what their lives are going to be like if that's all they've ever known from the time they were a child. It's really a weird time we're entering into where human beings kind of had certain structures and behaved a certain way for a very long time. And that has changed so quickly in terms of like the course of human beings. It's Change is inevitable, but this change has happened so dramatically and so quickly that I don't know if we're going to be able to grapple with the consequences for a very long time.